My name is Yuma. I'm an associate professor of marketing at McGill University. I work on consumer choice modeling and in general about the food and retail industry. So I look at how consumers make decisions, in particular in choosing food and what are the impact of those choices on their long-term health outcome. It's part of our life nowadays. It's really influence everything we do as a consumer. We make decisions. There's a lot of recommendations by AI which guide how we choose products, because I'm looking at food, how we choose food. And I think there are many benefits we can derive from the system if we figure out a way to nudge consumers by choosing healthier food through the AI recommendation and so on. But at the same time, there's also concerns about what's the impact on sustainability, what's the impact, on the entire welfare of society. I think that's something we have to look into before it's everywhere. I mean, it's almost everywhere, but we still have a chance to look at its impact and trying to figure out a way to make it work for not only consumers, not only retailers, consumers, but also the entire society.
Yeah, exactly. And it affects so many areas of our life we probably take for granted and don't even realize like AI is there. So,
Exactly. Say I shop online for groceries nowadays, and every time when I go to your website, put something in my basket, I get recommendations, right? So those are recommendations coming from some AI system, which I think have a pretty big influence on what I buy, and but I don't really know what's going on behind that system. I actually think there are many unanswered questions. So there are some research looking at how consumer respond to AI recommendations, but in general, it's still quite under-researched about how people perceive those recommendations made by AI system and how people can link those recommendations to their long-term goals or benefit. So for short term, those recommendations seem to be, the benefits seem to be very obvious. It make it much easier for people to make a choice. But for the long term, we don't know how that's going to drive our, long term, like let's say if in terms of food contact, what will be the possible consequence on our healthy food intake overall, or maybe even for longer term health outcome driven by food choices. I mean, some of these choices are, of course, influenced by AI. We need to get some answers from not only from how consumer perceive those potential, influence on them in short term, long term. We also need to understand how manufacturers and retailers can take advantage of the system. I mean, in a good way, in a positive way. So many of the systems are introduced to make it easier for people to choose by taking account of their preference, taking account of availability and other factors. Could we impose a longer term goal, or maybe could we impose, let's say, something about sustainability, about the overall welfare of consumers into that system? So it not only take care of the short-term interest for the retailers, for consumers, but also for the long-term interest for everyone. And even for this, then and just to add to that, I'm also thinking about, for example, like we have, online shopping is really popular nowadays. There are a lot of deliveries made, let's say, to my house, and sometimes wonder if there's a way to reduce those delivery traffic. Instead of having like one car or vehicle come to my house every 3 hours, is there a way to combine them and so that can reduce the traffic, reduce the consumption of gasoline, and overall, I mean, make it more sustainable, right? So that requires a collaboration across different retailers to achieve that. And that also requires some type of, I guess, consideration from consumers. So now some companies allow you to choose combining different packages to, so it's going to take a bit longer to arrive, but it will take fewer trips for the delivery vehicle. And I'm wondering if the way to push it even further to let consumer kind of opt in those type of services so that can cut down the let's say I mean a lot of unnecessary trips by delivery vehicles. And I wonder how AI can help, to consumer to address those issues. I play with my daughter, and then I enjoy cooking. I'm very much into food, so I enjoy cooking myself, trying out different things.